PRAJNA SPARKS special series 59 Days of Healing, where we explore one maxim from the Tibetan Lojong text, 7 Points for Healing Dualistic Mind, each day to integrate the practice into our lives. Today is day 16, and we are working with point 3, turn challenges into opportunity. Maxim 16 is the last maxim in this point, and it reads, when you get blindsided, carry whatever hit you right into your practice. This maxim might seem to be asking for a lot, and it's true, it's a big ask. We experience all kinds of things sometimes that take us by surprise. All of a sudden, we encounter loss or grief, some kind of sadness, maybe even anger, anything that blindsides you. Sudden kinds of things that we weren't ready for, or opportunities that we can bring into our practice. First of all, let's just take a moment and recognize that we might not be ready as soon as something big hits us to immediately take it into our practice. That's not what the maxim is saying. If you can do that, that's great. But what the maxim is saying is when you're ready, when your mind starts to turn for, how do I deal with this? Why is this happening to me? That's the moment when we can actually bring that into our practice. Why would we do that? It can actually open us up to opportunities that we may not see. It may not change the situation. It may not change sadness, loss, anger, whatever it might be. What it will do is give us different ways to respond to these situations, rather than allowing them to overtake us. Again, whatever feelings we have are fine in these situations. It's not about suppressing them or changing them. It's about how do we respond when we've gotten enough strength back. This maxim is one that has been especially poignant for me. It's something that spawned this way of looking at life that I call the conspiracy to enlighten me. So when you get blindsided, when things are hard, it's difficult to see a silver lining. The maxim is not saying make up a silver lining, look harder for that silver lining. See it as a conspiracy to enlighten you. What ways can actually help you to open more? What ways can you engage with whatever blindsided you so that you're more comfortable in your vulnerability? You might recognize impermanence as it's operating throughout life, not only when it suddenly strikes you. What ways can you stretch into understanding, into benevolence, and caring for yourself so that you can have the resilience and the power to meet whatever you experience with a touching sense of possibility, a curiosity, maybe even a sense of careful adventure, stepping a little bit into the breach, trusting yourself, trusting the nature of mind and enlightened experience to be there, ready to offer you something to expand your mind and enlighten you just a little bit more.
I think that it's in these moments when things are hard that there is so much opportunity. I feel like when I am surprised by something, then it's helpful for me to remember how I tend to respond to those things so that I can remember this one. That if I find myself hardening to the experience or to other people, then that's the moment that I need to open up. And it's not about protecting myself. It's about finding the growth in that.
It's really about befriending yourself. Maybe growth is what's good for you. Maybe just sitting is what's good for you in very difficult times. Maybe just softening and allowing yourself to feel your way, like groping around in the dark, rather than trying to figure out what would be the best thing for me right now.
I recently looked up the root of the word vulnerability, and it comes from this word wound. And I think that when we get blindsided, it can feel really wounding. What we need to do with a wound is not to hide it away, but to allow it opportunity to heal. It seems like in these moments of being blindsided, if we can allow ourselves to be tender in those, then that's a real opportunity.
One of the reasons why this maxim is so especially poignant and tender is that that vulnerability taps into what the Buddha talks about as dukkha, usually translated as suffering. The wound is actually a great example. When we get blindsided, maybe it's like breaking an arm or open wound. In that moment, it's obvious suffering. It's painful. It can feel soothing to put on a salve or something that cools. And in that moment, that cooling feels good. But nobody wants the goodness of putting a salve on a wound. There's still a wound there. It's only good compared to the gaping wound that was extremely painful beforehand. That's like shifting suffering, things that feel pleasurable, but there's still this underlying vulnerability, the pervasive dukkha, the thing that we have in common with all beings in samsara. The existence of the wound in the first place is what brings the pain, that brings the relative pleasure of healing it. And eventually, what the Buddhist practice is aiming for, its complete arc, is for transcending that situation altogether, overcoming even that underlying vulnerability of pervasive dukkha, all suffering whatsoever, so that we are no longer vulnerable to any kind of unpleasantness. Once the shock of deep loss is more manageable, or if what blindsided us was not as dramatic as that, then we can start to incorporate any of the formal practices laid out in point 2 of this text, be it the formal practice of meditative inquiry or the formal Tonglen practice. In particular, the instructions for maxim 10, beginning the process of open-handed welcome with yourself, are incredibly helpful, no matter how small or enormous whatever blindsided us is. You can always revisit episode 31, which lays out the guided practice for that Tonglen, and start to incorporate it in your training. Just like anything else, the more familiar we are with the Tonglen practice, the more it's at our fingertips, ready when something blindsides us to take our habitual responses and turn them on their head. There's any number of different ways we can turn things around when we're blindsided. The major point is to start loosening the grip of the habit of dualistic mind. As I mentioned earlier, when we're talking about something that touches us with great tenderness, we might need time to get to that place of readiness. Whenever that moment comes, to start encountering experience as part of the conspiracy to enlighten me, we can start saying, what can I gain from this experience? How can I open my mind? How can I soften and warm my heart towards myself, towards others? And in this way, we train in the intertwined path of emptiness embraced by compassion, compassion embraced by emptiness.
This has been Yeshe and Tanya on day 16 of PRAJNA SPARKS special series, 59 Days of Healing. Tune in daily for more maxims from the Tibetan Lojong text, 7 Points for Healing Dualistic Mind. Check the episode notes for more resources and email us, sparks@prajnafire.com, with any questions. May all beings benefit.